anything more glorious in this world than a collaboration? Two great powers coming together to make an even greater power? I mean, ice cream exists, but collaborations are pretty high up on the list, especially when these two powers coming together makes a new and flashy power that's able to wipe out even the strongest of enemies. And while obviously me talking a lot about collaboration at the beginning of the video is gonna make people think there's gonna be other people than this pretty mug on the video, there's not gonna be. It's just me, and you're gonna have to deal with that. Because the real reason that I'm talking about collaboration today isn't because we've invited another YouTuber on this video to talk about collaborations. It's because in today's video, we're talking about collaborations, and not the kind that get agreed upon over Discord messages. No, Jutsu collaborations. Specifically, the top 10 strongest Jutsu collaborations in Naruto. Naruto is a show known for the beauty of the diversity of powers that it brings to the table. We have Genjutsu, Taijutsu, Ninjutsu, Medical Ninjutsu. Every individual person has a kit and power system individual to them. However, sometimes in the sprawling 700 episode anime, occasionally two characters found out that their powers were advantageous when used together. And more often than not, these moments gave us some of the greatest moments in Naruto. But what were these legendary combination jutsus? How did they work? Who was involved? What was the level of damage they could incur to the surroundings? Well, today we're gonna be answering all of those questions and more. But first, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you love the idea of me ranking and explaining things from anime, you're gonna love my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk about all other anime. And if you love the idea of me talking about anime, you're gonna love my anime podcast called Otaku's Anonymous that I do with Danny Mata, where me and him break down everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So, combination jutsus. They feel like the alley-oop of the Naruto universe. It can vary from something simple, like Shikamaru picking up Choji in his ball form and smashing people with it, to something completely terrifying, like Naruto combining a massive Rasen Shuriken with Sasuke's Amaterasu. But really, when it boils down to it, the core of every single jutsu combination is that they're stronger than the singular components by themselves. And the combination of these two jutsus makes some of the deadliest and most effective jutsus in all of Naruto. What are these jutsus? What are these combinations? And which is the most effective or the strongest? See, the reason that I differentiate between the two of these is because not all of the jutsus on this list are destructive. Some do more good than evil, which I know, crazy concept. And since we're talking about people doing more good than evil, that actually perfectly segues into our first entry, because coming in at number 10, we have the Secret Red Technique, also known as Secret Red Technique Human Puppet Control. Now, this is a combination jutsu between Granny Chiyo and technically whoever she attaches her chakra threads to. However, in the circumstance that we saw, it was a combination jutsu between Granny Chiyo and Sakura, which is actually probably why this jutsu makes the list at all, as Sakura's chakra control and massive strength made her one of the strongest puppets in existence. The way that this jutsu works is that the puppet master attaches a chakra thread to the head, arms, torso, and legs of the human they wish to control. Now, a hugely common misconception about this technique is that Granny Chiyo is controlling every single move that Sakura makes. However, that's not the case, and it's actually why this jutsu is as strong as it is. See, through the usage of this technique, Sakura still has access to all of her own free movement and techniques, which means the large majority of the fighting that we see from Sakura while she's connected to Granny Chiyo's strings are actually from Sakura. However, what this does afford Sakura and Granny Chiyo in this situation is Granny Chiyo's expertise and extra set of eyes. If Granny Chiyo sees or understands that Sakura is putting herself in a perilous situation, she can move her body forcefully, which is technically the way that this jutsu was created to work in the first place. See, this jutsu was created by Suna puppeteers to make sure that they always had puppets. That is to say, if all of their puppets were destroyed on the battlefield, they could control corpses as their puppets. But in order to use this technique on a living person, cooperation on both ends is required. That is, of course, unless the puppet master is incredibly skilled, in which case they can force the person to fight or move however they want, which is usually only necessary if the human puppet they're trying to use is significantly weakened or poisoned. The jutsu was actually even further improved by Kankuro in Gaara's light novel, though I would argue that the improvement that he applied to this jutsu no longer makes it a cooperation jutsu. See, Kankuro combined the ability to attach chakra strings to somebody with his knowledge of the chakra pathway system. And much in the same way that Gentle Fist is able to disrupt chakra flow by targeting certain Tenketsu points, Kankuro was essentially able to enact Gentle Fist through the medium of his chakra threads, which he uses to not only control somebody's body body, but also disrupt their chakra pathway flow, making them unable to use jutsu and causing them incredible amounts of pain. So while this jutsu does require 2 people, I would hardly call it cooperation. After the puppet show, we have an entry that's a bit more ambiguous, because coming in at number 9, we just have Inoshikacho. Now, the reason that Inoshikacho is slightly ambiguous is because they have a lot of moves together. See, Inoshikacho have an incredibly storied history together. In fact, in Boruto, we are now on the 17th generation of Inoshikacho. Now, Inoshikacho, for those of you living under a rock, is a combination of the Nara, Akamichi, and the Yamanaka, who 17 generations ago realized that their hidden jutsus actually all complement each other's very well. Though almost disrespectively, Inoshikacho doesn't only involve the Yamanaka, the Akamichi, and the Nara, as Inoshikacho also requires a member of the Sarutobi clan to keep an eye over the 3, and that member of the Sarutobi clan is supposed to give every single member of the Inoshikacho trio a set of earrings in order to symbolize their unity as a trio, which is why Konohamaru being the captain of Team 7 in Boruto makes no goddamn sense. Could have at the very least given Inoshikacho some random Sarutobi, but nope. Who'd they get? Moegi. 17 generations of history down the toilet. But enough about that. Why have these clans been working together for 17 generations? Well, we've already touched on it. Their hidden jutsus all complement each other very well. The Akamichi clan's partial expansion jutsu allows them to create space and protect the Nara and Yamanaka clan members, while the Nara clan's ability of shadow paralysis jutsu allows them to keep an enemy in one place so the Yamanaka clan member can body transfer into them. So in layman's term, the Akamichi clan member acts as muscle and gives distance so the Nara clan member can formulate a plan to keep somebody still so the Yamanaka clan member could switch into their body. And because it's so well known that these 3 clans' techniques work well together, they're always placed together. And combinations of techniques are passed down from one generation to the next, with there being 5 variations of combination jutsus we've seen from Inoshikacho, with Formation 1 pretty much being what I just described. An Akamichi clan member using multi-size technique, a Nara clan member using shadow paralysis jutsu, and a Yamanaka clan member using mind switch. However, Formation 2 is a bit darker. Formation 2 opens with the Yamanaka clan member not using their mind body switch technique, but their mind disturbance technique, a Yamanaka clan hidden technique that has them disrupting the mind of whoever they catch in their sights. This technique doesn't require the Yamanaka clan member to enter in the body of the person they're using this on, which means they still get to run around, but they don't get to control the person who they're using this technique on. What they do accomplish with this technique, however, is that anybody this technique is used on will begin attacking anybody around them, including allies. In all of this chaos, the Akamichi clan member will use their partial expansion jutsu to hold this now disturbed person still. The Nara clan member will use shadow neck binding technique on that now still person to choke them to death. Formation 3 is kind of like Formation 2, but much greater reaching, as Formation 3 requires mind disturbance dance performance, which is like the mind disturbance jutsu, but used on a group of people, which makes everybody in the group that it's used on begin to battle against each other. The Nara clan member then uses Black Spider Lily, which has the Nara clan member extending their shadow in pretty much all directions to try and grab as many people as possible. Actually, I messed up earlier. This is used first, because the Black Spider Lily technique can be used to pull in all the people it's being used on into one group. And once that group is small enough, then the Yamanaka clan member can use their dance performance jutsu. And then once everybody within this group is super disturbed and dancing, the Akamichi clan member uses super multi-size technique, which just makes them absolutely massive, and they squish them like a pile of ants. Formation 4 also tries to create a more wide-scale effect, as this formation requires the Yamanaka clan member to use their mind clone switch technique, which splits their consciousness in half, allowing them to shoot their consciousness into more than one person simultaneously, as well as curve their consciousness. It requires the Nara clan member to use shadow sewing technique, which is a technique that Shikamaru used against Hidan to create shadows to physically bind the person on top of their shadow being controlled, which is usually only used on strong people who might be able to resist just their shadow being controlled. And then lastly, but definitely not leastly, butterfly bullet bombing, which requires an incredibly skilled Akamichi clan member who's able to use the butterfly mode. And upon activating their butterfly mode, they're able to enhance the power of their punches to such a degree that really anybody who gets hit by it is getting knocked out. So the combination of these 3 jutsus, the Inoshikacho trio, is able to basically hold anybody still for long enough that Shoji or any Akamichi clan member is able to smoke them with a punch strong enough to take out even summon the strongest shinobi, so long as the Yamanaka clan member makes sure to leave the body of the person they're controlling before Choji smokes them. Lastly, with Formation E, we have the human bullet yo-yo. See, while we've only ever technically seen this technique used by the 16th generation of Inoshikacho, that would be Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino, we don't know if it's specific to them. The first step of this technique is for Choji to expand his entire body using his multi-size technique. He then turns this massive body into his human bullet technique when he becomes a ball. It's at this point that Shikamaru grabs Choji's shadow with his shadow and begins to wield this massive version of Choji like, well, a yo-yo. I personally would say that the closer comparison is something like a flail, but what do I know? And while this connection is being made, Ino is detecting all of the enemies within the immediate vicinity of Shikamaru and transmitting that information directly to him. So Shikamaru can swing Choji at whoever he wants without actually ever needing to see them. And you can't tell me that's not incredibly cool. But you know what's not cool? Our number 8 spot, because coming up at number 8, we have Toad Oil Flame Bullet. Get it? Because it's fire. Toad Oil Flame Bullet is a cooperation jutsu between a toad and a human. However, it's not as simple as just that. Not any toad and human can use this jutsu together. The toad and the human in question have to have harmonized together to understand exactly how much oil or fire they have to produce to make this the most effective jutsu they can. And it's at its most powerful when a larger toad like Gamabunta is the one producing the oil, as a much larger toad like Gamabunta has a much larger lung capacity and therefore can spew out more oil. Now, the fire used in this equation isn't really all that important. Well, obviously, Jiraiya and Gamabunta are able to use this technique at its highest level possible because both Jiraiya and Gamabunta are high-level ninjutsu users. So long as the oil gets lit on fire, it appears that this technique works pretty well, at least so far as the anime goes. Because, like, technically we've already stated that a good harmonization needs to happen between the toad and the human. In the anime, in a battle against Manda, Naruto simply lights up Gamakichi's toad oil with an explosive tag, and that seems to work. In fact, it works at such a level that Manda has to shed his skin to escape. Now, there are technically other iterations of the Toad Oil Bullet. Oh, I'm sorry, he lit up Gamatatsu's oil, which is also kind of what happens in one of the different iterations of Toad Oil Bullet, which would be Wind-Release Toad Oil Flame Bullet. Now, in this jutsu, Gamatatsu spews out oil, and Naruto enhances the spread of the oil with his Wind Release. And then, on top of this, Gamakichi lights up the whole combination with his Flame Release, which makes a Toad Oil Flame Bullet that burns hotter and has greater range. And this technique was enough to knock out Isobu, the Three Tails. This is also basically what Jiraiya does with the combination of Ma and Pa on his shoulders, where I believe Jiraiya spews out the oil, Ma spews out the Wind Release, and Pa spews out the Fire Release, and a technique known as Sage Art Goemon. And considering the fact that we've seen these techniques do everything from forcing Manda to retreat to knocking out tailed beasts to wiping entire paths of pain off the map, I would say it's pretty deserved of being on this list. But is this technique as strong as our next entry on the list? Because coming in at number 6, we have the Sound Beast Summoning 4 Beast Formation Encirclement. A lot of long jutsu names on this list. Now, this technique is kind of terrifying, and quite honestly, it makes me kind of glad that in the Sasuke retrieval arc, the Sound 4 got split up. Because if the Sound 4 had all decided to stick together and take on the entirety of the Sasuke retrieval arc and use this formation, they wouldn't have gotten to Sasuke. In fact, the story of Naruto would have been a whole lot shorter. But why do I say that? How does this technique work in the first place? Well, this technique works by combining the summons of all 4 members of the Sound Village 4. But what are those summons? Well, Sakan and Ukon summoned the Triple Rashomon Gates. Now, the Triple Rashomon Gates are gates either associated with Orochimaru or those close to him. And the purpose of these gates is to dispel any offensive jutsu used against them. As the first gate takes the attack head on, the second gate reduces the pressure of the attack, and the third gate disperses all energy from the attack. And we know with the usage of these gates that Orochimaru was able to take a tailed beast bomb head on. However, within the context of this formation, the Triple Rashomon gates stop anybody from being able to escape, and also act as cover for the Sound Village 4, who go on to summon their other respective summonings, like Tayuya, who summons her Doki, the 3 monstrous golems that she controls with her demonic flute, and Jirobo summons his Earth Prison Golem, which on top of being a massive stone golem, also had the ability to absorb chakra from the people it was fighting and regenerate any damage done to it, making it kind of a walking fighting version of Jirobo's Earth Prison Dome that absorbed chakra from from those under it. And lastly, Kidomaru would summon Kyodaigamon, which was a giant spider capable of making a giant sack of smaller spiders the size of dogs that it could rain on people in a little thing known as Rain of Spiders, which is my nightmare. And in this Rain of Spiders, all of these dog-sized spiders release threads that slowly ensnare the enemy that they're falling on, making sure that they can't move. So you can't go anywhere, it's raining spiders, there's 3 monsters with clubs trying to kill you, and a stone golem that can steal your chakra. It's not a great afternoon, but you might survive it if you have the next jutsu on our list helping you out. Because coming in at number 6, we have Lady Katsuyu, Immense Network of Healing. Have I been numbering these correctly? For some reason, I have 2 1s in my notes, and my notes ended at 9, so I could have been 1 off this whole time. We are on 6 now. Now, this jutsu is the only jutsu on this list that doesn't kill things. However, to call this jutsu useless because it doesn't kill things is just plain inaccurate. This is one of the strongest jutsus in the entirety of Naruto and is probably the strongest healing jutsu, period. See, this technique requires cooperation between Lady Katsuyu and a wielder of the 100 Seals, which is usually Tsunade. The way that this jutsu works is that Lady Katsuyu, however much of her has been summoned, splits herself up into thousands of little clones. And these thousands of little clones attach themselves to thousands of people. It's at this point that the summoner of Lady Katsuyu channels the chakra from their 100 Heal Seal to Lady Katsuyu, but more specifically to these thousands of clones. And it's at that point that Lady Katsuyu transfers the chakra that they get from the summoner to the person they're attached to. Now, since the chakra being sent is medical ninjutsu chakra, this heals anybody that Lady Katsuyu is attached to. However, it also restores the stamina and chakra reserves of anybody Lady Katsuyu is attached to. And this technique is able to be used pretty much regardless of distance, which means that the summoner of Lady Katsuyu can be miles away from the healing that they're doing, while also simultaneously healing thousands of people, which should put in perspective to you just how much chakra Tsunade and Sakura have. This is essentially the medical ninjutsu version of Naruto sharing his Jin cloak with the entire shinobi allied forces simultaneously. But instead of being a Jinchuriki, they just have insane levels of chakra and chakra control. On top of this, since there is a link between Lady Katsuyu and the summoner and Lady Katsuyu can telepathically communicate. And when it comes down to it, if you have one of these people who's able to pull off this jutsu on your side of the battle, you're pretty much guaranteed to win. Unless, of course, they get cut in half battling against Madara, and then Lady Katsuyu has to focus all of her attention on bringing those 2 halves back together. Coming up at number 5, we have the 3-way deadlock, or more specifically, the new 3-way deadlock. Now, the reason that there's an old 3-way deadlock and a new 3-way deadlock is because this entire 3-way deadlock thing is predicated on summoning Gamabunta, Lady Katsuyu, and either Manda or Auda, because Manda dies in the battle against Datara, which means that both the legendary Sannin and Team 7 have their own iteration of the 3-way deadlock. Now, the 3-way deadlock isn't really a jutsu. There's no specific formation they use or combination jutsu they enact to battle against the enemies. It's kind of just Lady Katsuyu healing people, Manda slipping through defenses, and Gamabunta smashing shit. But it does require that 3 people use a jutsu simultaneously. And all of the summonings are really only able to achieve what they can achieve because all of the summonings are there. Lady Katsuyu needs Auda or Manda and Gamabunta to break up the front line so they can go heal everybody who's on the battlefield and injured. Manda or Auda really need Gamabunta to be as destructive and big as possible so they can slither through into the back lines, and they all make each other stronger. So it feels close enough to a combination jutsu for this guy. But enough about borderline combination jutsus, let's get to real combination jutsus, because coming up at number 4, we have, and I'm gonna have to read it, Flying Thunder God Mutually Instantaneous Revolving Technique. Because of course, that's what it would be named. This technique is one of the strongest combination jutsu techniques out there, simply predated on the fact that it requires 2 users of Flying Raijin to use, which is an incredibly high bar, especially when you consider the fact that there are only 2 confirmed Flying Raijin users that have names. Minato's personal protection squad also had to learn Flying Raijin so they could keep up with him. The only 2 people with names that know Flying Raijin are Tobirama and Minato. Now, this technique works in 2 separate ways. 1, 2 users of Flying Raijin mark each other with Flying Raijin marks, and this allows them to switch places at any point and from any distance away, kind of like Toji's clap technique, which was used very effectively in the 4th Great Shinobi Worlds War when Naruto and Sasuke hit what appeared to be Minato with the combination jutsu, but at the last minute, Minato switched with Tobirama, who was holding on to Obito, and thus Obito was actually hit with the jutsu. But the connection of these 2 Flying Raijin users also allows both of the users to use the other user's Flying Raijin marks, meaning any mark left by Minato could be used by Tobirama and vice versa. And listen, if you thought Toji's innate technique of being able to clap and switch places with whoever he wanted was was powerful, but if it was able to happen instantaneously from any distance away with no use of hand signs. Outside of this also works as an incredibly effective way to tap out of a battle. Oh no, I'm getting absolutely jumped. How about I send the fresh Minato into this battle? Well, at the same time, having different flying Raijin users being able to use each other's flying Raijin marks adds an insane level of mystery and danger for whoever they happen to be fighting. But since we're talking about the technique that was used against Obito in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, we should probably talk about that technique. Because coming in at number 3 is another jutsu whose name I'm gonna have to read. Scorch Release Halo Hurricane Jet Black Arrow Style 0. Nailed it with that one. That's just words. Now when it comes to combination jutsus, I would not fault you for thinking that this is the strongest one in existence. This technique combines Naruto's Wind Release Rasen Shuriken with Sasuke's Blaze Release Kagetsuchi, creating an entirely new Kekkei Genkai referred to as Scorch Release, as technically this is the combination of wind in fire. Though technically Scorch Release does already exist as a Kekkei Genkai, but that was used by a dead and then reincarnated shinobi by the name of Pakura, who could create fireballs that when they hit you, they burnt out all of the water in your body and made you a mummy. That is substantially more merciful than what this Scorch Release does. This technique is probably the most difficult to pull off out of all of the techniques on this list, because in order for Naruto and Sasuke to pull off this technique in the first place, there has to be a perfect combination of wind and fire chakra. Any shifting of the elemental releases in any direction makes this jutsu unusable. However, Naruto and Sasuke, being the secret lovers that they are, were able to figure this out almost immediately. And since the ratio is perfect, the power of the fire is greatly increased. It's terrifying when you think about the fact that Kagetsuchi is just made of Amaterasu, which burns anything it touches until it's ashes. Meaning if you happen to come into contact with this massive Rasen Shuriken hurtling its way across the battlefield, not only will you be cut on a molecular level by the Rasen Shuriken, but you'll also be lit on fire. And this technique not only killed hundreds, if not thousands of Ten-Tail clones, but also pretty much engulfed the entirety of the Ten-Tails in flames, causing it a massive amount of damage and pain. But this technique doesn't always have to be massive. Sometimes it can be handheld, which is what Naruto and Sasuke did when Minato and Tobirama used the round-robin reciprocal flying Raijin whatever the hell. And when they planted this technique squarely in Obito's chest, he was flattened by it. Now mind you, this was Jubito, so the strongest ever version of Obito, being able to impart serious damage to a legitimate Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. Not easy. But even Scorch Release isn't the strongest combination jutsu. Not even the strongest combination jutsu from Naruto and Sasuke. In fact, it's technically not even the second strongest combination jutsu from Naruto and Sasuke, because that honor goes to our number 2 spot, Majestic Attire Susanoo. Now, technically, Naruto and Sasuke aren't the only people to ever pull this off, as Madara also pulled it off with just Kurama. The technique itself is relatively simple. It requires putting a Susanoo around Kurama, or Kurama's chakra, which massively enhances Kurama and or Kurama's chakra's defense, and also stops Kurama or Kurama's chakra from being absorbed. This is actually the real reason that Madara put the armor around Kurama in the first place, because he knew that Hashirama would be able to absorb Kurama's chakra. So what did Hashirama do? He punched the armor off, and then he absorbed Kurama's chakra. But the Majestic Attire Susanoo does more than just put a fancy set of armor on Kurama. Kurama is also able to wield Susanoo's sword, which he's able to combine with his own tailed beast balls to increase the cutting power of the sword. Kind of like how Sasuke or Killer Bee are able to imbue lightning chakra into their blades to make them sharper, Kurama imbues the power of a tailed beast ball into Susanoo's weapon to make it impossible to stop and make sure it cuts through pretty much anything. And when you consider the fact that Madara's base Susanoo was able to cut through mountains, that's a terrifying prospect. Tie that into the fact that Naruto is able to control every single one of Kurama's tails and either use them as hands or vehicles to transport massive Rasengans into people's skulls, and you have one of the most terrifying weapons in the entirety of the Naruto universe. As to why they didn't try to use it against Ishiki, we'll never know.
But Nick, if the Majestic Attire Susanoo isn't the strongest combination jutsu in all of Naruto, then what is?
Listen, so far as the manga is concerned, the Majestic Attire Susanoo is the strongest combination jutsu in Naruto. But I want to take a quick step out of realism here, because I want to talk about the entirety of the Naruto universe, and I'm not even talking filler. No, I want to talk a technique straight out of Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 4. Because coming in at our number 1 spot, we have Six Paths Shinra Tenkyo. Now, does this jutsu technically exist in canon? No, though it kind of does exist in canon. Let me elaborate. So the way that this jutsu works is that both Naruto and Sasuke are being super amped by all 9-tailed beasts simultaneously. Kind of like how Sasuke was amped by the 9-tailed beasts in the final valley. But in this circumstance, it's not just Sasuke, it's both Naruto and Sasuke. And while being amped by all 9-tailed beasts, both Naruto and Sasuke summon their strongest forms. For Naruto, that would be his tailed beast form that combines 2 of Kurama's clones into one physical body and makes the 3-headed Kurama. And for Sasuke, that would be his complete body Susanoo, but specifically the complete body Susanoo capable of pulling off Indra's arrow. And it's at this point that Sasuke fires his Indra's arrow, while Naruto fires off his 6-pass Ultra Big Ball Rasen Shuriken, as well as a tailed Beast Ball Rasen Shuriken, which is technically exactly what Naruto and Sasuke did in the Final Valley fight. However, instead of these techniques coming together to neutralize each other, they're all being fired at the same target. So when all of these techniques come into contact and make the massive explosion that we see in the Final Valley fight, that massive explosion isn't just between Naruto and Sasuke, but directed at somebody, which is why technically this combination jutsu does exist. However, it was used on the air. But all of the single cell amoebas that existed where these 3 techniques made contact were definitely destroyed. So because it does technically kind of exist in the manga and does exist in Ultimate Storm 4, it's getting our #1 spot. I don't care if that upsets you, it's my list. But if you guys were making your own list, what would it look like? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. When making a ranked and explained video, if Naruto is on the list, Naruto gets the top spot. I don't make the rules, I just abide by them.